He hadn't planned to stay out so late. The lake was further than he remembered, and time slipped by unnoticed while he cast line after line into the still water. By the time he packed up, the sun had already vanished behind the trees, leaving behind that deep blue twilight where shadows take on weight and silence thickens. He took the trail back slowly, not because he was tired, but because something about the path felt different in the dark. The crunch of his boots against the gravel seemed louder than usual. Every now and then he paused, expecting to hear something else, an echo, a step, a branch breaking in response, but the woods stayed dead quiet. Eventually he reached the clearing with the old bus stop. It was barely more than a wooden bench under a rotting canopy, swallowed on all sides by forest. The faded plastic sign still hung crooked from a metal pole, the route number long since worn away by rain and time. There was no lighting, no schedule posted, no shelter from the wind. Still, the habit was hard to break. He remembered taking the bus from here as a teenager, when the line still ran twice a day. That route had been shut down over 10 years ago. Budget cuts, they said. But tonight, standing alone in the cold and looking at that ghost of a stop, he couldn't shake the feeling that he wasn't entirely alone. He glanced behind him. The trail he'd emerged from was now just a jagged darkness between trees. The only sound was the wind scraping dry leaves along the asphalt. He told himself he'd just wait 15 minutes, maybe call a cab if his phone got signal. But there was no reception out here, just one bar that blinked in and out, like it couldn't decide if it wanted to help. After 20 minutes, he turned to leave, and that's when he heard it, the distant grumble of an engine. At first, he thought it might be a truck on the service road a mile off, but it grew louder, closer. Headlights appeared far down the bend, cutting through trees like white knives. The bus rounded the corner too smoothly, too silently for its size. Its windows were pitch black. No interior lights, no route number, no markings at all. Just a long, pale body rolling toward him, tires whispering over the road like something gliding. It stopped in front of him without a sound. The doors opened, and though he felt every instinct pull him backward, he stepped forward instead. Inside, the air was colder than it should have been. Not winter cold, something else, like stepping into a place where time had been drained out. The fluorescent lights above flickered, dim and colorless, barely illuminating the narrow aisle between rows of upright seats. The driver sat in complete stillness, unmoving behind the scratched plexiglass shield. He tried to look at the driver's face, but it was obscured either by shadow or reflection. He couldn't tell. Something about the position, the angle of the head, made it feel not quite human, as if the body had been placed there for effect, like a coat draped on a mannequin. He moved further down the aisle. The seats were occupied. Not full, not at first glance, but sporadic figures sat motionless in the rows, each one turned slightly toward the windows. No one made a sound, no one looked at him. And yet the bus felt aware of him, like a single eye slowly adjusting its focus. He took a seat halfway down and faced forward. The doors hissed shut behind him. The engine growled deeper this time, and the forest outside began to move. But it wasn't the forest that shifted, it was the bus, sliding forward again, silently gaining speed down a road that should have ended long ago. The path outside grew unfamiliar. Trees blurred into dark walls. No lights, no signs, no landmarks, only a long, endless corridor of black. And then he noticed the fog. It started at the floor, seeping through the vents like breath. Thick, low, pale. It curled around his feet and moved slowly up his legs. It didn't smell of smoke or moisture. It smelled sterile, dry, like old film reels in storage rooms. His chest tightened. Across the aisle, a figure turned its head, just slightly. Not enough to reveal a face, just enough to let him know it saw him. The skin was pale, almost colorless. The mouth hung partially open, lips unmoving. No eyes, just hollow sockets where the irises should have been. More passengers were turning. Not fast, just slowly, deliberately. Their faces had no names, but he knew them the way you remember dreams you never had. When he looked down at his hands, they were trembling and wet. He checked his seat. The cushion was soaked through, not with water, but something thicker. The texture clung to his palms. The smell hit him a second later, old blood. He stood up, and every passenger's head snapped toward him at once. He stumbled backward, but the aisle felt longer now, stretched, as if the bus had grown, warping subtly the way things do in nightmares just before waking. The passengers didn't move beyond their gaze, but that was enough. Their eyes, or the blank spaces where eyes should have been, locked onto him, each face tilted in that same wrong angle. They weren't people anymore, if they ever had been. They were placeholders, echoes, predecessors. The fog had reached his waist. Breathing became harder. The windows outside had turned opaque, smeared with condensation and streaked with something dark that pulsed downward slowly, like thick veins. He reached for the emergency stop cord, but it wasn't there, just a torn loop of frayed string. No button, no lever, no exit. The bus didn't stop. It didn't slow. It just kept moving deeper into some place that had no name, no logic, no map. The kind of place that existed only when you stopped believing it didn't. He forced himself forward, seat by seat, past the unmoving heads, past a girl with her fingers bent the wrong way, past an old man whose skin looked like paper soaked in tea. The closer he got to the front, the stronger the stench became. It wasn't just blood. It was mildew, rot, age, like the inside of a casket forced open too soon. He reached the driver, or what was left of him. There was no face, just skin stretched tightly where features should be, a blank, pale oval like a smoothed mask. But the hand still gripped the wheel, knuckles white, bones sharp against the skin. The wheel didn't turn. The bus navigated the path on its own, through a world that didn't seem to exist outside its windows anymore. He screamed, but the sound was eaten by the fog. No echo, no reaction, just the cold, pulsing hum of motion. Then the console lit up. A small green display blinked to life behind cracked plastic. One word appeared, confirmed. Below it, a list of names began to scroll. One by one, rows of letters burned across the screen like typewritten ink. Every few seconds, a new one. A woman's name, then another. Then a teenager's, a child's, and then his. His full name spelled correctly, appearing in perfect line with the rest, as if he'd always been next in queue. The lights overhead flickered once more and then cut out completely. For a moment, there was only the fog, the pressure in his ears, the sense that time had folded in on itself. And when the lights returned, he was seated again, halfway down the aisle, staring out the same window he'd looked through before. Only now there was nothing outside, no forest, no road, no night, just blackness. The bus moved on, and no one ever came to that stop again. They called it the Blind Hollow Loop, a stretch of highway in the northern Appalachians that used to connect a few long-forgotten mining towns. 12 years ago, after multiple landslides and no remaining residents, the state declared the section no longer serviced, meaning no repairs, no plowing, no patrols, just barricades, rusted over time, and a forest that quietly took back what was once its own. I work in dispatch for the State Transportation Office. Night shift, mostly drunks hitting deer or complaints about potholes. But that night, just after 2:40 a.m., an alert pings through the system. Emergency button number 416 activated. The ones they used to install at remote bus shelters. Location, mile marker 147, Blind Hollow Loop. The weird part wasn't just that we hadn't serviced that area in over a decade. It was that button number 416 should have been decommissioned. I checked the satellite overlay, no active road data, no camera feeds, just a pin hovering in the middle of black. I tried calling the number associated with the emergency box. Nothing. No cell towers in range. Even our internal maintenance directory flagged the location as archived, but the system didn't care. It treated the alert like any other. We had to send someone. I notified District Maintenance Unit 7, which covered the region. They didn't like it, especially not at that hour. But rules were rules. A technician team, Sal, Grant, and Dorsey, loaded into their service truck and headed out. At 3:17 a.m., they reported reaching the old barricades. Still rusted, still intact. The team debated whether to proceed. Then Sal's voice crackled over the radio. The weird thing is, the road ahead looks fresh, like someone's been maintaining it. I didn't know what he meant. New asphalt, painted lines, no debris. It's like someone paved it last week. Satellite still showed nothing. Just static gray and green where the forest had overtaken the path long ago. No updates, no road work orders. Nothing. They drove on slowly. At 3:42 a.m., Sal radioed again. We found the bus stop. That sentence made my skin go cold. I pulled up a digital rendering from the old infrastructure maps. The original shelter had been wooden, weather-worn, probably collapsed years ago. But what they found didn't match. It's new, he said. Glass panes, stainless steel frame. Still has plastic wrap on the bench slats. He sounded off, unnerved. There's condensation on the inside of the shelter, like someone was just sitting here. And then there are tire tracks, deep, leading off the road into the woods. Grant's voice came in next, hushed, like he didn't want to be heard. But there's no road there. It's just trees. Then the radio cut out. When the radio went silent, I assumed it was a dead zone. Mountains, thick forest, it happens. I pinged their truck's GPS. Nothing. Last recorded position was the bus stop. After that, it was as if the vehicle had disappeared from the map. Literally. The system returned a no-signal invalid coordinates error, like they'd driven off the face of the earth. I waited, cycling between the weather radar and maintenance logs, pretending this was just a weird glitch. At 4:06 a message flashed on screen. Unit 7, audio-only transmission, Unverified source. I accepted the stream. The first thing I heard was heavy breathing, then metal creaking. It sounded like someone shifting inside the truck. A voice followed. It was Sal. But it didn't sound like a radio call. More like a voicemail that had been spliced and distorted. We followed the tracks. It's not a road. Trees bent backwards. Something pulled through. Like the forest, ... moved. Static drowned him out for a few seconds. We found it. Not a bus. Not a shelter. It's not supposed to be here. Then another voice, Grant's. But he wasn't talking into a mic. He was muttering like someone recorded him from too far away. They left them behind. The seats, still warm, still. Sinking. Then screaming, metal slamming. And something else, a low mechanical whine, rising in pitch, like an engine struggling to turn over underwater. I terminated the feed. At 4:10 a.m. protocol required me to notify state police. I filed a missing unit report. I lied and said their last known location was mile 142, well before the dead zone. I didn't want them to ignore it. I didn't want them to ask why 3 workers had gone into a road the state said no longer existed. The police searched all morning. Helicopters. K9 South. They found the barricade. They found the dirt beyond, overgrown and impassable. But no fresh pavement. No bus stop. No tire tracks. Nothing. At 3:17 p.m., exactly 12 hours after Sal had reported finding the shelter, the same emergency button lit up again. Button number 416. Same location. Same coordinates. This time I didn't send anyone. I didn't answer the signal. I just stared at it, blinking red on the screen, daring me to acknowledge it. Button number 416. Same GPS ping as before, the dead road. But I knew what protocol demanded. I had already broken it once by falsifying the report. Doing nothing a second time would raise questions. So I made a decision that felt like dropping a stone into a deep well. I drove out there myself. It was mid-afternoon, but the sun had a strange heaviness, like a storm no one could see was pressing down on the horizon. The road beyond the barricade looked like it hadn't been driven on in years. The gravel was bone dry, cracked like old skin. No tracks, no sign of rain, though the sky was gray. The trees leaned in unnaturally, not broken, not bowed by wind, curved, as if they'd grown that way to close something in or out. I drove slowly. My tires hummed on the gravel until the gravel stopped. Just a sudden transition to dark asphalt, smooth and unbroken. No signs, no mile markers. It was like entering a tunnel, though there were no walls, just trees, rising high and narrow like pillars. The air grew silent. Not just quiet, silent. No insects, no birds. Not even the whir of my own engine seemed real anymore. Then I saw it. The shelter. It sat in a small clearing, perfectly centered, like someone had carved space out of the woods just for it. It wasn't a bus stop. Not really. It had the basic shape, roof, bench, 3 walls, but it looked wrong. The proportions were off. Too tall, too narrow. The glass was darkened, and not from dirt or time. It looked like the glass itself refused to reflect anything. I got out of the truck. The air was colder here. I felt it in my teeth. The pine needles underfoot were wet, though it hadn't rained. As I stepped closer, the ground began to feel soft, warm, like stepping on something alive. The shelter made no sound, but it vibrated slightly, like it was breathing or humming beneath the frequency of human hearing. Inside were 3 orange vests folded neatly on the bench. Boots lined up below them. A radio unit lay on the concrete. Its green light blinked once as I approached and then went out. There were no bodies, but there was something else. Carved into the far wall of the shelter, a single sentence etched deep as if clawed by hand. Stay on the map. I don't remember driving home. The next thing I knew, I was in my apartment, sitting in the shower, fully clothed, water pouring down cold. I never told anyone. I transferred out of dispatch 6 days later, but last night at 3:17 a.m., my phone lit up. No number. Just a message. Unit 7, road reopened. And an audio file attached. Just wind. And somewhere in the distance, footsteps on gravel.